Members of Congress, the challenges before us demand our immediate and united action.
Hello, everyone. Tonight, we're stepping into how Ford built a B-24 Liberator bomber every single hour during World War II. With 1904 mast seen one of the greatest manufacturing achievement in history. If you enjoyed this journey, please like the video, subscribe to step into history, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next journey into the past.
In 1940, President Roosevelt asked Congress for 50,000 military aircraft. The military contractors said it couldn't be done.
We can.
But Henry Ford looked at that impossible number and made a promise that made the entire aviation industry laugh. He said he'd build one bomber every hour. By mid-1944, he was doing it. The Willow Run factory in Michigan was producing bombers at a pace that changed the entire war. Not through heroics, not through genius design, through something simpler and more powerful. Industrialization, assembly lines, standardized parts, worker coordination. I went through production records, studied factory blueprints, and used AI to reconstruct the daily workflow of how these workers built a B-24 Liberator bomber every single hour at peak production. Charles Sorensen, Vice President of Production for Ford Motor Company, didn't say this promise casually. He'd walked through Consolidated Aircraft's facility in San Diego and seen how bombers were made. Workers built aircraft outdoors. Engines were attached to makeshift rigs. The sun heated steel differently than the cool hours of night, causing the metal to warp and shift. Two B-24 bombers coming off that line were never quite identical. The process was slow, handcrafted, imprecise. It was the opposite of everything Ford knew about manufacturing. Sorensen returned to Michigan and made his pronouncement to Henry Ford. "We'll build one bomber an hour." The aviation industry's response was to mock him. Aircraft manufacturers had spent decades perfecting handcraft methods. They had engineers, designers, and specialists. A car company, a company that built identical machines by the millions. It was absurd. One historical account said the aviation people considered the claim preposterous, but Ford wasn't bluffing. In March 1941, construction began on 975 acres of farmland owned by Henry Ford himself, near a small creek called Willow Run, between Ypsilanti Township and Belleville in Michigan. The site was 35 miles west of Detroit, isolated from existing highway connections, sitting in the middle of Michigan farmland. The decision to build at Willow Run wasn't just about location. When Ford engineers realized they would be building complete bombers instead of just final assembly, the plant needed to be enormous. Willow Run would fabricate parts, assemble fuselages, build wings, install engines, test systems, and produce finished bombers all in one location. Architect Albert Kahn was brought in. Kahn had revolutionized factory design in America. He understood industrial flow. He understood how to make buildings that didn't just house production, but enabled it. Kahn designed a building over a mile long, with dual parallel assembly lines running side by side. But there was a problem. If the plant stretched in a simple line, it would cross from Washtenaw County into Wayne County. Different tax rates applied. So Kahn and his team made a 90-degree turn halfway through the factory. The building bent like an elbow. This single design decision kept the entire operation inside Washtenaw County and saved enormous tax obligations after the war. The building went up in sections. As portions were completed, workers sealed them off with plywood partitions and moved on to the next section. 5 separate construction contractors were hired to accelerate the work. By September 1941, parts of the plant were already operational. By October 22, 1941, the entire facility was formally dedicated in a ceremony attended by Major Jimmy Doolittle of the U.S. Army Air Forces. The scale was literally beyond anything the aviation industry had ever seen. When completed, the main building sprawled across 3.5 million square feet of floor space. An adjoining airfield covered 1,484 acres with runways and aircraft hangars. The largest of these hangars could hold 20 B-24 bombers at once. The airfield had a hotel, a control tower, and a cafeteria. It was a complete industrial city built for one purpose: producing bombers. When Ford's engineers arrived at Consolidated Aircraft's San Diego facility to study the B-24 Liberator, they discovered something that changed everything about their approach. Consolidated didn't have updated blueprints, so Ford engineers did what seemed impossible. They went to San Diego and spent 4 months reverse engineering the entire B-24 from existing aircraft and incomplete sketches. Ford engineers produced 5 miles of blueprints per day. This blueprint effort revealed something critical.
Let's check the tolerances.
It made Willow Run fundamentally different from every aircraft
Good.
factory in America. Ford understood how to make identical parts. Car manufacturing depended on interchangeable components. Aircraft manufacturing worked the opposite way. Each bomber was slightly different. Variations were accepted. Craftsmen fitted parts to individual aircraft. Ford changed that completely. The B-24 Liberator was an engineering marvel and a manufacturing nightmare. At 67 feet long, with a 110-foot wingspan, it dwarfed anything aircraft factories had mass-produced before. It carried a crew of 10 and was powered by 4 Pratt & Whitney engines, each generating 1,200 horsepower. A combat-ready B-24, loaded with bombs and ammunition, weighed between 55,000 and 65,000 pounds, depending on the mission profile. It could fly 2,000 miles to German targets and return home. Consolidated Aircraft built beautiful B-24s. They just couldn't build them fast enough. Each bomber at Consolidated was a custom creation and took weeks between start and finish. Ford saw this and eliminated the entire approach. He would move the airplane, not the workers. A mechanical assembly line would carry the B-24 down a mile-long path. Workers stayed at their stations. As the bomber approached, they performed their specific task. Wings attached, fuselages riveted, engines mounted, hydraulic systems connected, electrical wiring threaded, control surfaces tested. When the bomber reached the end of the line, it was finished and ready to fly. This required absolute precision. Every wing had to fit every fuselage without modification. Every engine mount had to align perfectly on the first try. This demanded tooling, jigs, and fixtures unlike anything the aircraft industry had ever attempted. The line would produce 1 bomber every 100 minutes at peak efficiency. 4 bombers moved down the line simultaneously, each at a different stage of assembly. As one rolled off the end, another began at the start. The pace was relentless. Standardization made it possible. By December 1941, with construction complete, the factory was ready. Parts and sub-assemblies streamed in from Ford facilities across America. Workers were arriving by the thousands. The first production bombers were taking shape. Charles Sorensen's impossible promise was about to face reality. The factory that was supposed to build a bomber an hour couldn't build a bomber a day, not at first. January 1942 arrived cold. Workers came in, the machinery hummed, and when the first month ended, Willow Run had produced 37 complete B-24 bombers. The aviation industry watched this number and smiled. Ford's promise was already looking impossible.
Let's plan.
The mockery
Long shift
started
today, boys.
quietly.
Tell me about it.
Some
My back's
workers
killing
called
me.
the factory
Overtime's
Willow
worth it,
Run.
though. Heard the lines
The
changing
name
soon.
stuck.
About time.
It became
More
a
cars,
joke,
more pay.
a running bet on whether the place could actually deliver what Sorensen had promised. But something different was happening behind the scenes.
Looks tight.
Ford's
Note the rivet
engineers
count.
weren't accepting
We're ahead on
failure.
fuselages.
They were methodically destroying every problem in front of them. Bottlenecks were identified. Assembly sequences were redesigned. Tooling was refined. February 1942, 70 bombers. March, 96 bombers. April, 146 bombers. The trajectory was clear. The factory wasn't failing, it was learning. The bigger challenge was happening at the employment office. America's skilled workers were disappearing. The Army was drafting men. Ford couldn't compete with the military for experienced metal workers and machinists. So he did something radical. He hired women. By May 1942, women made up 15% of Willow Run's workforce. By 1943, with employment peaking at 42,000 workers, women represented roughly 1/3 of the total workforce. These weren't desk jobs. These were riveting positions, assembly stations, and precision work requiring speed and absolute accuracy. The women at Willow Run earned the same 85 cents per hour as male workers doing identical jobs, and they turned out to be better at some tasks than their male counterparts. Riveting is detail work. It requires dexterity and sustained concentration. Research would later show that women often excelled at this type of assembly work. The factory understood this. It didn't
Welcome
assign
to the
women to
factory.
easier tasks.
It's quite an operation.
Instead, it trained
Let me
them
show
as
you
riveters, electrical specialists, and quality control inspectors. They became the backbone of the production line. By November 3, 1943, Willow Run had produced its 1,000th B-24 Liberator. The "Will it run" joke died that day. The factory wasn't struggling anymore. It was finding its rhythm. Workers knew their stations by heart. The line kept moving. Production became routine. By September 1944, the factory completed its 6,000th bomber. 5,000 bombers later, they were only just getting started on their biggest innovation. Ford engineers had been working on a breakthrough that would push production from fast to almost unimaginable. The center wing section of the B-24 was the most complex part of the entire aircraft. If it wasn't assembled perfectly, the entire fuselage could be compromised. Ford engineers analyzed every second of the process. They redesigned the jigs from scratch. They built fixtures so precise that components snapped together without adjustment. They transformed the most difficult stage of aircraft assembly into a routine operation. By mid-1944, the numbers stopped being theoretical. They became reality. The factory was producing one B-24 every 63 minutes. At its absolute peak, Willow Run rolled out 428 completed bombers in a single month. That's 14 bombers every day. Nearly 450,000 individual parts. More than 360,000 rivets in 550 different sizes. Charles Sorensen's promise of one bomber every hour wasn't just fulfilled, it was surpassed. Ford engineers had solved what many believed was impossible. The B-24's center wing remained the aircraft's most complicated structural component. It had to be perfectly aligned and strong enough to withstand enormous stresses in combat. At Consolidated, building the center wing took days. Ford completely changed the process. Engineers designed fixtures so precise that a prefabricated center wing section snapped directly into place without adjustment. A wing built in one part of the factory would fit a fuselage built somewhere else, as though they had been manufactured together. Standardization made it possible. The more identical every component became, the faster the aircraft could be assembled. That single innovation changed everything. It wasn't just about the center wing. It represented Ford's entire manufacturing philosophy. Consolidated built beautiful, individually crafted aircraft. Ford built identical aircraft. Fast. That made all the difference. Maintaining this production pace required extraordinary logistics. Ford coordinated with nearly 1,000 subcontractors and suppliers across the United States. Wings arrived from one factory, fuselages from another, landing gear from a third, electrical systems, hydraulic assemblies, engine mounts. Every component came from a different supplier, arriving in exactly the right sequence at exactly the right time. Nothing waited in storage. Everything kept moving. The entire operation functioned like a perfectly synchronized orchestra. One missed delivery could interrupt the entire production rhythm. Transporting 42,000 workers every day became a military-scale logistical operation. Willow Run sat 35 miles west of Detroit with virtually no public transportation. The government established special bus routes. At every shift change, hundreds of buses arrived almost simultaneously, moving tens of thousands of workers, coordinating schedules, getting everyone home safely, and repeating the process for the next shift became one of the largest transportation operations in the country. In 1942, the federal government built the nation's second freeway, today's Interstate 94, to move workers and materials efficiently to Willow Run. But by late 1944, things were beginning to change. Military priorities shifted. The B-29 Superfortress entered production. It flew higher, carried a larger payload. The Army Air Forces reduced orders for the B-24. After years of constant acceleration, Willow Run's production line finally began to slow. On June 28, 1945, Ford shut down the assembly lines. The machinery stopped. The conveyors fell silent. Workers clocked out for the final time. The most productive bomber factory on Earth would never build another bomber. Nearly 9,000 B-24 Liberators had rolled out of Willow Run. The factory didn't disappear after the war. It evolved. Kaiser Frazer purchased the facility and built automobiles there. Later, General Motors acquired the plant and produced transmissions for decades. The bombers were gone, but the manufacturing system remained. Every major American manufacturer studied Willow Run. Japanese companies adopted Ford's methods and refined them. Toyota developed just-in-time manufacturing, where parts arrived exactly when needed, eliminating unnecessary inventory and waste. Modern lean manufacturing grew directly from principles demonstrated at Willow Run. Walk through almost any modern factory today, and you'll find systems descended from what Ford engineers built in Michigan. The B-24 Liberator became one of the most produced heavy bombers of World War II. Yet military history often overlooks the people who built them. The riveters working 50 feet above the factory floor during freezing Michigan winters. The electricians threading miles of wiring through each fuselage. The mechanics testing engines before every aircraft left the line. Charles Sorensen promised one bomber every hour. By 1944, Willow Run had nearly achieved exactly that. Not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through discipline, standardization, and the belief that if identical automobiles could be mass-produced, identical aircraft could be built the same way, and even faster than anyone imagined. Willow Run proved that manufacturing excellence could be industrialized. The factory closed in August 1945. The assembly lines stopped. The bombers disappeared. Cars replaced aircraft. Later, transmissions replaced cars. Eventually, much of the factory stood silent. The airfield became a civilian airport, but the methods survived. Every modern manufacturing system still relies on the principles proven at Willow Run. Standardized
Stage
parts,
3 is fuselage
continuous
assembly.
production
This
flow,
is where the sections come
worker
together.
specialization,
Precision is everything
quality
here.
control, synchronized supply chains, prefabrication. In 1941, these ideas were revolutionary. They became the difference between producing bombers slowly and producing enough bombers to change the course of history. Charles Sorensen promised one bomber every hour. By 1944, Willow Run delivered. An automobile company became the most productive bomber factory on Earth. The 42,000 workers who made it possible never became household names. Most have been forgotten. But every modern assembly line, every factory where parts move in rhythm, every production system where finished products emerge on schedule, can trace part of its history back to a Michigan farm transformed in 1941. They proved that manufacturing excellence could be industrialized, that precision and speed were not opposites, and that American workers could accomplish what once seemed impossible. Thank you for watching Step into History. For a brief moment, you stepped inside one of the greatest manufacturing achievements of World War II. A factory that transformed farmland into the most productive bomber plant on Earth. These stories are more than history. They remind us how determination, innovation, and ordinary workers accomplished what once seemed impossible. From Henry Ford's bold promise in 1940 to Willow Run producing a B-24 Liberator nearly every hour by 1944. This factory changed not only the course of the war, but also the future of modern manufacturing. Built through standardization, precision, and the efforts of more than 42,000 workers, Willow Run became a symbol of American industrial power. If you enjoy exploring the factories, engineering projects, cities, and historic places that shaped our world, subscribe and join the journey. Where should we step into next?